Hi, and good day to you all. Happy Thursday to you. I am glad that everyone is here today. Um, and it is going to be an exciting day because today we're going to be talking about navigating the storms as a leader. Now, it might seem, why are we doing this? Why is this ever important? It's important because as a leader in your industry, you must know you must be aware of how to lead in your industry. You have to know how to lead your teams. You have to understand how to navigate the storms when they hit. And let me tell you, they always hit. The storms will always come. And it is up to you to be able to navigate it as the leader in your industry. So we're going to get started right away. Now, I'm going to start off, I'm going to be utilizing stories from the Bible. It's going to be the story of Joseph. We're also going to be using the story of Noah. And the reason why I'm using these stories is because it's going to help illustrate my points and it will get the points across. Now, in the story of as a leader, especially, I shouldn't say in the story, as a leader, the first thing that we need to do before we can navigate a storm, be in any storm or anything like that, is to be able to have a strong mental resilience. That's what I'm going to share with you, a strong mental resilience. And we live in such a time, mental health is exceptionally important, but people do not necessarily have strong mental resilience. So, how do we build this? How do we build this up? Because before the storm hits, you need to be prepared. If you hear a storm is coming, you make sure you have batteries for your flashlight, candles if needed. You have some food, perhaps canned foods in your storage. You have water, and you have that for at least 14 days, especially if it's a big storm and you're not sure what's going to happen. So people will generally will have food, water, an extra supply of clothing, depending on the type of storm, for between 7 and 14 days for survival purposes, because they don't know, hey, is the electricity going to be out? Would we be able to get to a store? Whatever it is. And so this is why the preparation period is so important. And now I'm going to get into that mental resilience strength. As a leader, you need to be prepared before the storm hits. You have to be prepared for that. Now, in the story of Joseph, Joseph was a young boy. He had a dream. Right? He had a vision. He knew what his purpose was. He was beloved by his father. He was, loved by his brothers. However, his brothers, for whatever reason, they sold him into slavery. Number one, he sold into slavery, from being a beloved son to being sold into slavery. Number two, from slavery, he's like in a cage, sold into slavery. He goes to Egypt, a foreign land, a language that he may and or may not have known. Now, Joseph is a young boy. He gets put into the house of the slave master, because now he's become a slave, and he's in the house of Potiphar, who is a top official. So interesting. So you see, the preparation ground is being laid here. He gets into the house, and what does Joseph start to do? Is he crying and weeping? Perhaps he was. No idea. Did he go through a dark night of the soul? More than likely he did. It didn't say that in the story. But what it does say is that Joseph operated from the essence of excellence. Not perfection, but with an essence of excellence. What I mean by that is that he did his very best every day. He understood the situation that he was in, and then he took it ever further from the situation that he's in to recognizing, okay, this is where I'm at. This is how I'm going to be able to perform. Because he was operating from the essence of excellence, he rose to become, second only to Potiphar, the the master of the house, the head of the house. And then he took it one step further, not only to be one of the favorites and the most trusted of slaves, but then he expanded his territory. He multiplied his ROIs. He ensured that his master, Potiphar, at that time, um, was thriving successfully. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that. Why? Joseph recognized who he was, and that is key. He knew who he was. He was the son of a good man. He was free once upon a time. But then now he's in a situation where he is a slave. And so he had a choice to make. Am I going to strengthen myself, or am I going to weaken myself and be in defeat and curl up and hope to die? Instead, no, he said, I am going to do my best. Now, we don't know all of the details. I mean, the story is just a story. But based on how the story goes, this is where we start seeing Joseph or Yusuf building up this mental resilience, this mental strength. And that is key. That is important. That is necessary as a leader in any industry. Now, unbeknownst to Yosef or Joseph at this time, that was his training ground to eventually lead a nation, the biggest nation in the known world of that time. So, a free young boy, happy, beloved son, most beloved, to a slave, rose through the ranks, becomes second only, right? That's foreshadowing. You know a bit about grammar and anything with writing, foreshadowing, it's what to come, right? They're showing you what's to come in the story. He's second only to his master. Now, Joseph finds himself in a situation. He's accused by Potiphar's wife. And so now Joseph has to go to jail. Potiphar still loved Joseph. He loved him and what he was doing for him. But he had to send Joseph to jail. But Joseph used his time in Potiphar's house to expand the territory. He used it as a training ground to cultivate his skills because he had the gift of understanding of dreams and vision. So that was that ground. He started to cultivate his skills in business, in negotiation. He cultivated his skills in learning how to lead. He was a slave, but he was learning how to lead. Foreshadowing. Now, Joseph goes to prison. And in the prison, of course, in those times, they have no respect, right? Like they're not given any respect. You're a prisoner, you go to prison, that's it. But Joseph was treated differently. And that essence of excellence that he operated from his master's house, now he took that same essence of excellence, not perfection, but the essence of excellence, always doing his best in the prison where he was. And it says that he rose through and he was the most trusted prisoner. They trusted that he would not try to escape or run away. He brought order and structure to the prison where the people were. The prisoners liked him. The guards liked him. Everyone listened to him. And so again, now he's still ever training, right? Foreshadowing. The first step was in his master's house, in Potiphar's house, where he was given authority. where he was given power, second only to him, until a situation arises and he gets thrown in prison. The accusation from Potiphar's wife came. He was thrown in prison. Now he's in prison. The skills that he learned on his first job, although he was a slave, he brought it to the prison where he was. Now, mentally, in his mind, he was not in prison. Similarly to mentally in his mind and Potiphar's house, he was not a slave. And that is attributed to him knowing who he is. Shakespeare wrote, "To thy own self be true." To thy own self be true. So you have to know yourself. So when you get in any situation, you would always remember who you are and you can operate from that space, that essence of excellence until you are living in that space of purposeful living. Now, in the prison where Joseph was, there were two prisoners who had a dream. They could not understand this dream. And in this dream, he saw one who said, he's like, okay, this day you're going to the gallows. You're going to be oof, right? You're gone. This is your last day on earth. And the other one, he said, you're holding a cup. You are going to the palace. And he told him what that means. Now, and he also told this prisoner, when you get there, speak to the Pharaoh of me. Remember me. He was like, remember me. He said, remember me. Now, a lot of the times we forget, not only as leaders, but just as people in our industry, that every relationship that we encounter, every relationship that we are working with, it is a connection. It is an opportunity to grow, right? And so it's always good to have good relationships with others. You don't have to be their best friend. Just have a good relationship with them, working relationship. Because this is how you start forming allies. So Joseph tells the dream to these two prisoners. He explained it because he understood it. He told the one that was going to the palace, remember me. Now, in that space of remember me, now Yosef is still in the prison. Now, this is years and years. The guy that goes to the palace, he is a cupbearer. If you know anything about history, if you know anything about being a cupbearer, you would know they are second only. They have to taste and eat and drink whatever it is and be wherever it is that the king or the pharaoh of that time is. And that is a very high position because someone's always trying to kill the king. So for this prisoner to be in this position after being in the prison is a very high honor. The king or the pharaoh at this time has a dream. And in that dream, he cannot explain it. But all his top officials as well, they could not explain it. They could not see it. They could not understand what it meant. Now, these are top magi's or magicians, seers, sages. This has been their life's journey. This is their life walk. They were born either into it and or came into that situation from a very, very young age. Because it's a very specific lineage when you start going into things of the spiritual. They could not explain, they could not understand. In saying that, now the cupbearer remembers Joseph. He remembered that Joseph understood and could interpret dreams. Why? Because Joseph was ever operating in his space of gifting, in his purpose. He was operating in a space of gift and purpose, and that distinguished him among everyone else. And he took it even further by operating in the essence of excellence. Because of that, now Joseph is recognized. His light is shining regardless of wherever he is. And so now we see that the cupbearer remembers Joseph, talks to the Pharaoh about Joseph. No one else can do it, but I know one person. I know this one guy, Yosef, who can interpret your dreams, who can tell you what you saw. And not only can he interpret it, but he will help you to know what to do. He will give you the solutions to your dream. Whew. As a leader, we're problem solvers. Someone comes to you with a problem. They don't know how to fix it. You have to interpret, and then you have to give them the solution, just like Yosef, just like Joseph. So the Pharaoh calls for this Yosef, calls for this prisoner, this slave, right? He went from his top officials to a slave. So you never know when it's your time to shine. You never know when it's your opportunity to use your gift. Remember, you were made for such a time as this. So Joseph, he has to be washed out before he's presented to the king, obviously, or the Pharaoh, because it's the Pharaoh. So they wash him. He comes out. Of course, he's in chains because he's a prisoner and he's a slave. And the Pharaoh proceeds to tell him, Yosef interprets, lets him know what to do, and even gives him the outline. Zig Ziglar is famous for saying, the more people you help get what they want, you will get what you want. Well, Joseph wanted his freedom. He didn't want to be a slave. Who wants to be a slave? But what he did every time before he was presented to the Pharaoh of that time, he used every space and opportunity to operate in the essence of excellence and to use his gifts so he can build up on the skills that was needed for the time when he was presented to the Pharaoh. This is you. You are Joseph in terms of that mental resilience, that mental strength that you're needed. So this is how you need to ask yourself. Am I using where I am in this moment as my training ground? Am I operating from an essence of excellence? Am I doing my best? Am I giving more than what I'm taking? How is this benefiting both sides here? Right? Ask yourself these questions because when the challenges come, you will always remember your why. You will have a foundation to stand on. Know yourself, know your value, know your worth, and operate in the essence of excellence. And this is how the beginning, the first stage of mental resilience to help you navigate any storms that would arise or that comes in your path. Now, to finish up that story with Yosef, so he shares with Pharaoh. He interpreted, he made sure he understood it, he gave him an outline along with the solution of what he needs to do. And in an instant, boom, Yosef now becomes second only to Pharaoh. Yosef has reign to manage and lead all of Egypt. All of Egypt, who was the biggest empire at that time. He led and he used every opportunity in the beginning with Potiphar in Potiphar's house. He was second only to Potiphar. Except Potiphar's, there was an incident. His wife accused Joseph, so to the he had to go to the prison. Now it's not only a household and the surrounding area that Joseph has to manage and make sure that the people are happy and that they too are operating in an essence of excellence, even though they were slaves. But now he has an entire nation to lead. And not only a nation to lead, but a nation to prosper. Because there was 7 years of prosperity coming and then 7 years of not prosperity. So, how do you prepare before the storm? How are you going to navigate that storm? So, Joseph, on a personal level, had to go through that training ground, build up the mental resilience, cultivate craft, refine his skills, his gifts, his purpose, so that in the appointed time he is able to lead an entire nation and the surrounding nations around Egypt. He can help these people. He can help people live, thrive, grow. So that's how he did it. And that is how you're going to do it as well. That is the first step, mental resilience, having that mental strength. Now, we're going to move on. How do you forge strong bonds? Forging strong bonds is, and relationship, especially in a team, is important. So I'm going to share the story about Noah, about forming strong bonds. In the story of Noah, it is known that he was a good man and he believed in God. That's it. It didn't say he was an engineer, a carpenter, a chef, a leader, none of those things. He was just a good man and he believed in God. This is what's known. That's what's given in the story. Noah now gets revelation, insights that a storm was coming and is going to wipe out their entire known world. At that time, they would say the whole world, but it would be his known world at that time. Noah believed what the revelation that he received. He proceeds to tell others, right? His family, perhaps his neighbors, perhaps his community, that a storm is coming and we need to be prepared. It is said that many laughed at him. They didn't believe him because they've never had a storm where it was just raining continuously to wipe out the whole earth. So they did not believe him. What Noah does now is his family. This is another fact here. His family is the one that's helping him. If you know anything about construction, engineering, building a house, you recognize that there's a lot of skills and technique and qualification and experience that is needed. We don't know if Noah has all of it. And there's a high likelihood that he did not, because he's not just constructing a home. Now he has to construct a floating home, a ship, which, based on the story, it is unknown if he already knew how to do that. So we're just going to assume that he did not know how to do that, since he didn't say he knew how to do that. Now with the ship, now he has to design it. He has to be an architect. He has to engineer it, because how is the ship going to start? How is it going to stop? He has to know that. Who is going to be on board? So he has to know accommodations. How many people? How many rooms do we actually need? How long are we going to be there? Now this is supply. What foods are we going to take? What food is going to last? Do we need seeds? What type of seeds? Because they don't know. It's unknown how long they were going to be on that ship. And, if they would ever find land. He's just constructing this boat. This is the insight that he received. He's preparing the way. In saying that, now he's forging strong bonds because he needs his family and anyone else that comes on his team to help him build this ship. He has to think as zoologists if they're bringing animals on board. In the story, animals come on board. They need male and female. Why? Reproduction. They need humans, male and female, for reproduction service. Like you have to reproduce. He needs to make sure that they are warm. Who can sew? So now the women specifically, all of they have to know how to sew, how to make clothes. They're the ones that's cooking, so they're the ones that bringing in all of the food supplies. They will know what can last, what can hold, how to preserve things, what space, the dimensions. All of these things in building a ship takes time. Now, they also have to think of the water filtration system. How are we going to filter water? How are we going to get rid of waste? That is all very, very important. These are all fine details when you're doing any project or running any company. You have to understand all the things that are needed so you can put them in place and be able to put the people in the right place to help you accomplish the goal, whatever that goal is. So, how did Noah unite and forge strong bonds? Well, yeah, he had family, and yes, they love him and support him. But what really strengthened that bond was the fact that everyone was working towards the same goal. And in this case, it was survival. They wanted and needed to survive. Yes, Noah was good. Yes, Noah believed in God. But at the end of the day, they wanted to survive. That's what it came down to. They needed to survive. And so they had to work together. They had to trust that Noah can effectively, properly lead them for when that storm hits, because they did not get this revelation or insight. He did. It's like, as the owner of a company or you starting a project, you're the one that has that main idea. Now you have to take that main idea and translate it to make sure that it's going to work. Make sure that everyone is accomplishing that goal. And on top of all of the things Noah had to do, now he has no idea if this ship is going to sink or float. So, on top of all of that, that is an intense amount of pressure because now he has lives in his hand, not only his own, but others, and that of future generations. So that's an immense amount of pressure. Now he's forging these strong bonds. No rain didn't even come yet, and already he is weighed down, burdened. This is psychological, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because now everyone is going to, who is going to survive? How are we going to build this? How is this going to work? They needed to put systems in place. They need to make sure, okay, we got to make sure that animals are separated. We have to shovel the fecal matter, right? Or use it for soil so the plants can grow. There are all of these things. How can they recycle certain things? How do we get clean water? Clean water is huge. They needed a whole water filtration system. Someone needed to be on watch. So that means that took a lot of people just to be able to run the ship. So him and 6 other people ain't going to cut it to build a ship and then run the ship. They had to be other people as well that is going to support him on this. So whenever you're navigating any storm, remember you need that mental resilience. Be like Yosef. Operate from that essence of excellence. Recognize this is where I'm at, but this is not where I'm going to stay. and operate from that essence of excellence. Build your mental resilience. Use where you are as your training ground so that in the appointed time, you are equipped, you are qualified, you have allies in strategically placed high places that will support you. Like Yosef, Potiphar was a top official. Although he had to send Yosef to prison, Yosef comes back to the palace. Now he never went into the palace, but now Yosef is above Potiphar. But Yosef has an ally in Potiphar. Why? Because when he was a slave in Potiphar's house, he operated from a place of excellence. And so now Potiphar becomes an ally with him because they have to run Egypt. And Potiphar doesn't want to get oof, right? He doesn't want to leave the planet early. The other thing was he had an ally in the prison. Now, the ally in the prison wasn't the top guard, it was a slave just as him, a prisoner just as him, who ended up in the palace as the cupbearer in a high ranking position as the cupbearer. And I explained what the cupbearer does. So when Joseph was presented, first of all, Joseph got a referral from the cupbearer to the Pharaoh. And then now, when he's presented, he was equipped and ready to be of service. He was equipped and ready to be of service. And he also had allies in strategic places to help him lead the nation. In the story of Joseph, how you build strong relationships because you need strong bonds to navigate any and every storm. You need to have support. Many people are like, oh, I did this on my own. Well, you know what? Maybe, they lied. Not maybe, they lied because they didn't do it on their own. There was always maybe that one person that supported them on their journey. It could have been for a short time, but somebody supported them along the way. Somebody inspired them. Somebody encouraged them. And so with Noah, in the midst of the storm and the immense pressure and burden and stress on every single area of his life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, that needs a mental strength. Why? Because now he has to work together with people he may or may not have known for survival. And not only for it's survival for an unknown time that he didn't know if they would reach land. If this has resonated with you, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button to this channel. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions at all. And I hope you have an incredible day.